According to multiple reports, the Toronto Blue Jays have taken the lead in the Jorge Soler sweepstakes. Didn't work out the first couple of times that we heard that sentence uttered, but it did work out last time, and the Jays ended up landing Yariel Rodriguez. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, Jorge Soler to Toronto has been a common theme in this offseason, and a lot of executives believe that it should happen, it could happen, and it ultimately will happen. And a lot of reports are indicating that the Jays are kind of in the mix over there. We're not sure what kind of contract he's going to get. Probably figures to be around a 3-4 year deal at around $15 to $20 million per. I mean, it's a lot of money for a guy that's going to primarily be DH for you, but the numbers speak for themselves, and the power numbers speak for themselves. 36 home runs last year. He was instrumental in a couple of playoff runs as well with the Atlanta Braves. So he's a good player. He's someone that could definitely help out this Blue Jays lineup, and he's exactly the kind of player that they need to add.
Yeah, some big reports coming out today. Soler, as well as a little bit of a Blake Snell update. Before we do, a quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 12,500, so make sure to hit that button if you haven't already. Now, Peter, let's get into the first topic today, which is, like you said, we have some big updates regarding that. One from Jon Heyman. We also have an interesting article from Ben Nicholson-Smith, kind of hating on Jorge Soler a little bit here, and they kind of had some Blue Jays fans up in arms. But let's start with the report from Jon Heyman, who, some like him, some don't like him. He's actually been pretty accurate this, offseason, and he said the hitting market with Soler, Martinez, Turner, Hoskins is heating up. The Jays are a front runner for Soler with the Diamondbacks and Red Sox interested. Now, Peter, we heard this a couple weeks ago, and again, Soler hasn't signed with the team, and I think the longer it takes, almost the better off it is for the Toronto Blue Jays and their chances to get one of these guys. I feel like Soler is the most likely option right now that the Blue Jays are going to get. And what are your thoughts on that? Again, we've spoken about it at length before, but I think given how the team has been constructed, especially now that they got a couple other adds, Yariel Rodriguez obviously is a pitcher, but it still kind of shows their plan this offseason. Soler makes sense to me, and we've heard from reporters that I think the Jays want someone who can play in the outfield as well, not to necessarily fully clog up that for DH spot.
Yeah, I like Soler as a player, but I'll give my thoughts on Jon Heyman first before we get into him, actually. I think Jon Heyman is a joke. Obviously, we saw what he did with the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, said it was good for baseball, and kind of planted the seed for Toronto Blue Jay fans to not like him going forward. And then when Yariel Rodriguez signed with the Blue Jays the other day, he said, good for baseball. He doubled down and basically joked around and ridiculed the Jays fan base. So I think he's a joke. I think he just makes a mockery out of the entire baseball media thing. And, I don't like him. I don't think he's good for baseball, but he is accurate in his reporting. So if he's saying this about Jorge Soler and if he thinks it's a good fit, then the Blue Jays are definitely in the mix and probably going to land him because he has been pretty spot on with his predictions thus far. So I like Soler as a player. Like I said in the introduction, Nick, he is the exact type of guy that the Blue Jays need. Maybe not at 3 years or 4 years, but definitely in the short term, he's going to help out this lineup immensely, just with that power and that presence that he brings. Obviously, he's not going to hit for 300 average. He's not going to be one of the best hitters in baseball, but you know what he's going to do, and he's been pretty consistent at that his entire career, and that's hit home runs. And what did the Blue Jays struggle to do last season? What were they middle in the pack in? Hitting home runs. So I'm no math guy, I'm no baseball expert, but you put those pieces together and you add those things up, it makes sense. And the Blue Jays figure to be a better team if they add a guy who hit home runs, considering they were a team that struggled to do so last season.
And one big note as well, it's not in this, but it came out a few days ago if you weren't following or not up to date with the Red Sox news. Their GM, I don't know if it's the president, GM, someone, a report came out basically saying the Red Sox right now are more interested in someone who could be a versatile, play multiple positions. So I don't think they're necessarily going for Jorge Soler. And the Diamondbacks, I think, are a better fit for JD Martinez, as they've been reported, which leaves us more than likely with Jorge Soler. Now, Peter, you mentioned it. I completely agree with you. This is from Ben Nicholson-Smith's article, and he says the worst case of the Blue Jays regarding the DH is that they're the ones who signed Soler for 3 years, but he's inconsistent offensively while blocking others from the DH spot. In other words, it's Kendrys Morales 2.0. And obviously the best case would potentially be that they're intent on making a splash. They get Soler. He's basically saying the best case is that the Red Sox push for Soler and land him. I'm much higher on Soler than Ben Smith is. For some reason, he's super low on Soler. I do understand the concerns regarding his splits against right-handed pitching aren't necessarily the best at times, but Peter, he mashes home runs. We saw how the approach where you go for less power, more contact works. I don't care if he ends up hitting 220 with 30 home runs. They just need a threat in the middle of that lineup to help protect some of the other guys and vice versa. And I think in the middle of the Jays lineup, maybe even after Vlad, he would shine.
Yeah, I think so too. Obviously, we know about the inconsistencies, and maybe him at 3 years scares a few people in the Blue Jays fan base. And I know a lot of people in our comments are kind of against Jorge Soler as well, like Shane Turner, one of our more loyal followers, loyal listeners. But uh, look. I, you put yourself in this position now if you're the Blue Jays where you don't really have the choice to be picky, and all of those five names that we've mentioned, and I'm talking about Jorge Soler, Reese Hoskins, JD Martinez, Jock Peterson, and Justin Turner, I
Yeah,
guess,
yes.
is the other one. Of those five names, I mean, the Blue Jays can't necessarily handpick who they want. They got to be in on all of them because at the end of the day, they all make this team better. If they're your everyday DH or if they're in in your lineup every day, they're going to make your team considerably better than it is right now because you have a hole at third base, you have a hole at the DH position, and you're not really sure where you're going. You're not really sure how this lineup is going to look for a full 162. So, yeah, Jorge Soler might be at the top of the list for some people. He might be at the bottom of the list, but any ad that you make of those five that I just mentioned, they're going to help out this ball club. And the Jays have put themselves in the position where they can't be picky and they just have to make their team better at all costs. And if you have to eat a couple years or if you have to eat a couple extra $1 million to do that, then go ahead because at this point, I don't see this lineup really giving themselves a chance day in, day out. The pitching staff is fine, and the Jays decided to add even more to that the other day, but you haven't done anything to address the concerns in your lineup, and I think you even got worse than you were last season. So the Jays just need to suck it up here and just make that move to make this team considerably better.
Yeah, I'm a big Soler guy, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I just want to see him hit moonshots in Rogers Center. That's all I want to see,
Yeah.
and I think he would definitely do that. And he's coming off the best season of his career. And I mean, it's not like we're talking about a $200 or $300 million deal here. The worst case is that I guess you block the DH position for 2 or 3 years at maybe 15, however much it is AAV. So let's know what your thoughts are on that. I just want to quickly mention that it does seem like the Jays are seemingly out on Blake Snell now. Apparently, it's never seemed realistic. So that was just a little thing I wanted to add in, especially because they just got Yaro Rodriguez, who's set to be a starter. But Peter, before we do wrap up, well, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on Jorge Soler, because I know there's a lot of varying opinions. But I do want to touch on the coaching move they made a few days ago. We hadn't gotten a chance to touch on it. There's just been a lot of news going on. This one's very big, and it's Matt Haig, and we discussed them throughout last season, throughout the regular season. The Blue Jays officially announced the promotion of Matt Haig as the club's assistant hitting coach, and then at the bottom there you can see their full staff, or at least some of their staff. I didn't include the first 2 weeks; it was long. But Matt Haig, assistant hitting coach, we've seen what he did. Former Toronto Blue Jay, I watched him play on TV a few years ago. I think it was 2018, whenever it was. He's back, or he's up with the major league team, and he did very well with the AAA. They have one of the best hitting staffs or hitting rotation rosters, in baseball. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Hopefully this takes Don Mattingly away from hitting duties. I'm hoping that's what it means. And obviously I don't know what role they gave to Don Mattingly. Was it like defensive
I think so.
coordinator or
Let
something
us know in the
ridiculous like
comments.
that? So let him stick to the infield. Let him because he was actually pretty good at that with the alignments and like the pickoffs. That was all Don Mattingly's doing. But I think he had a little bit too much say in the hitting aspect of things last season. And look, being a great player doesn't necessarily transition into being a great coach. And Don Mattingly could do things on a baseball field that most players are not able to do. That's why he was an all-star. That's why I believe he should be a Hall of Famer. It's because he was able to hit 300. He was able to hit for power, and he was a true superstar level talent. He was, but not everybody is. So that's why when you take a guy who's hitting 230 like Dalton Varsho and you try to make him become into a slap hitter and tap into his contact ability, it's just not going to work. Not all players are built the same, and that's kind of tough for some former players that were great that transition into coaching to understand. Like it's not it's not as cookie cutter as it was for them because they made it look so easy. Not every player is built the same. So hopefully Matt Haig can implement what he did with some of the AAA boys last season into the big league ball club, because we saw the impact that Davis Schneider had when he came up to the big leagues. We saw Ernie Clement really shine when he got called up, and even Spencer Horwitz to a certain degree. So all those guys performed really well at the AAA level, and that was all Matt Haig. That was him being the hitting coach, and allowing them to stick true to their game plan and stick true to what made them successful and become professional hitters. So I want to see more of the same when he comes into the big league club. Just stick true to yourself and help out those guys really tap into what's made them MLB level players.
Yeah, I think I still like Don Mattingly. I don't know necessarily as a hitting coach. We'll see what people think there, but I think he provides some value. Like you said, I think he's probably better fit now for a defensive role, which I think he is going, as well as Dave Hudgens stepped into a different role as well. So they noticed that they are trying to get their hitting staff implemented. And again, we're not saying that it was only Don Mattingly. I don't think Peter's saying it was only Don Mattingly. It was Guillermo Martinez. It was everyone. But a change was absolutely needed because, I mean, we saw what happened last year. And yes, it was the players' fault first and foremost, but I'm very happy that they changed. Even though they didn't necessarily get rid of people, they at least changed things up and added people. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comment section what your thoughts are on that. And do you want Jorge Soler, or would you take one of these other guys here? But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.